From the Marquee Media Studio inside Mark Tank, it's the Mark Haney Show.
Yes, this is the Mark Haney Show. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We are still on our mission to ignite an entrepreneurial revolution right here in the hometown we love. We do that by building the backyard advantage, the most connected community in the world for local entrepreneurs. And what's different about today's show is the backyard is filled with all these spectacular people, and one of the most spectacular, if not the most spectacular, leaders of the Sacramento region is a guy by the name of Curt Rocca. He is one of the owners of DCA Capital, and he does so many great things for the community. He's been on the show before, so a lot of you probably know him. He's been Man of the Year for multiple organizations, and he's just a tremendous person. He was on the show more recently for launching and leading the Capital Cup, which is an incredible golf tournament. DCA has invested into so many companies and helped so many entrepreneurs. He's just a special guy, and he had this idea a few years back of interviewing me, and we did that. And last time he was on the show, he said, "Mark, I want to interview you again." And of course, I like to talk about myself. So, Curt, welcome back to the show. I'm going to let you take the lead. I am standing down and letting you lead, which is probably ask me a few questions, and happy to answer.
Despite what you just said, I mean, you and I both know you're much more comfortable talking about everybody else and much too humble to spend much time talking about you, which is why this is fun, right? Because I'm going to put you in that uncomfortable spot of ideally of having to talk a little bit, more about you. And, I think as is often the case, a lot of times people understand what we do, but they don't necessarily understand who we are.
Ah, interesting.
So I want to start with that and just ask you the broadest of questions, which is, who is Mark Haney?
Who is Mark Haney? I think at my core, I'm a family guy. So I grew up here in the Sacramento region. I grew up in Roseville, and I built some businesses here, and my wife and I had some kids here. And so I'm rooted here as a family guy in Sacramento. And I think deep down to my core, I know that I've got to be a foundation for my family. And so I've made it clear to them over the years that I am a Sacramento guy. We now live in Loomis, and hoping that they would adopt and like some of the values that I had and want to be here as well and be family people as well, because I think there's this strength in unity, and in a family, I think that's at the core of, being happy in life, is if we can have a strong family and a united family, and I'm lucky enough to have that.
It's interesting because if you take that philosophy and that analogy, it feels a lot like that's what you've built through the Growth Factory, is just an extended family. Do you think that there's a corollary between, your views on what takes to create a successful family and how important that is to your whole backyard advantage mantra?
I think so, because I think if we step back from how to be successful, how to win, how to be happy, I always thought work from the inside out. Instead of chasing things all over the world, let me get myself right. Let me get Mark right. Then if I can do that at a decent level, which sometimes is a struggle, then work on my family, and then work on my friends and my community. And so my friends have always been my teammates and my business partners. And so that's really what the Growth Factory was all about. Is I started thinking about who are these friends, and they're my business partners. I had started angel investing and was invested into, close to 50 different entities here and around the Sacramento region, because I wanted to invest into people that I could be friends with and hang out with. And I started sharing this idea that what if we had 100 millionaire business partners in our backyard that all loved each other, all loved Sacramento? What kind of power would we have in those numbers and that unity? And that really was the impetus for launching the Growth Factory. And at some level, that's what the Growth Factory is. We invest into early stage companies, and we invest into people but we're relentlessly local. It's all around building this backyard advantage, because that love, that unity, when we all want to show love to one another, help one another, it actually, the same way that it helps in a family, it helps in a group of businesses. And it all started with this, I had 5 security camera companies in my prior career, and we had some of that. So I had a little bit of experience finding that synergy among, business partners that all were sort of related. In that world, we were related by industry, by security. Right. But I had this idea that you could be related by geography as well, and maybe that makes it a little bit easier. And it hasn't been easy, though.
Nothing's ever as easy as you think it is when you have that great idea. So where were you? What were you doing when you had this epiphany that, oh my God, I think I can take this and create what's now become the Growth Factory? Do you remember? Do you remember that pivotal moment?
I remember thinking, writing a mission statement around, and this was after selling my companies in 2010, 2011 timeframe. I wrote a mission statement around creating opportunity for my family, my friends, and my community. As they succeed, I succeed. That was actually sort of like a conceptual idea. And then I started dreaming about these 100 millionaire business partners in my backyard. It was actually like I had a visual of it, because I was building out my last house, my backyard, and what it would look like to throw a party. And so there was this, I'm really one of those people that really believes in manifesting things. And so I saw it, I dreamt about it, I thought about it when I got up in the morning, thought about it when I went to bed at night. And if you think about something long enough, if you give it enough attention, somehow it magically starts to happen. And so that began to happen. And then COVID hit. Yeah. And we had already had our first backyard party. And when COVID hit, the world stopped. And so my team, Rick Spencer, Monique Brown, and myself, we started thinking about what we liked about what we were doing. We had some downtime. And we decided, well, what if we took it out of my backyard and made it the collective backyard of all of Sacramento, all the backyards of Sacramento? How much more powerful would it be? And so that's when we decided to start the Growth Factory, and we started a venture fund. So we have 100 investors. We started a nonprofit organization called the Growth Factory, where we, have an entrepreneurial development group, and we have a venture conference, GFX. And so the whole idea is to tie this love together. And I think it was Rick that came up with the name. Monique and I had already been working together for years, and we're kind of stuck in that backyard, my backyard. So I think with the addition of Rick, he helped take the dream and expand it. Now we have a dream of potentially having backyard advantage in other communities as well.
Really?
You bet.
Talk more about that.
Well, I think as the backyard advantage begins to work, and it is showing signs of working, we have traction. I think we're now invested into 65 companies just in the last 3 years. And as people begin to understand that there's this unity is a super valuable asset, and it's so much more easily brought together based upon proximity. So proximity can be an advantage if you let it be, if you help it to be. And so there's towns around Sacramento, around the world, around the country, that are, I guess, overlooked in terms of venture capital. They haven't developed the ecosystem in their backyards, and they're all looking at the Silicon Valley and going, we can never do that. But if they could take some of the concepts that we've done with the Growth Factory and the backyard advantage specifically, they can do it in their backyard as well. And so if we can help Tulsa, Oklahoma, or any other medium-sized town to do this, why wouldn't we? And in addition to helping them, it would tie together a larger network for ourselves.
So words like backyard advantage, love, unity, connectivity, those are all super cool words. But I'm an early stage company. My hair's on fire. I'm trying to get all this stuff done. What does that actually look like for an early stage company who's part of the Growth Factory or somehow involved with you? How do you kind of, fertilize that and make it grow within those types of companies? Yeah,
I mentioned the word love, and love's a fuzzy feeling that we get, but it's also an action. It's a verb. And so I think the way that we show the love can be infectious. Kind of like we've all seen that movie Pay It Forward, right? So it sort of like catches on, and one person helps one person, next person helps. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like a pay it forward, a give first philosophy, and it begins with helping somebody else. And many times that can come in the form of inspiring somebody. It might be just a sounding board, an empathetic ear, but where rubber meets the road is when you can actually engineer a win or help to engineer a win and connect the dots. One of the things that early stage companies, the hair on fire comment I think is accurate, maybe for most entrepreneurs, but for sure early stage entrepreneurs, there's not enough time in the day to do everything. And so meeting people, let's say you want to meet the mayor of Roseville or the city manager of Elk Grove or, Curt at DCA, you want to meet somebody. I mean, how do you get that person to even take your call? But if those wins are engineered, if we can get them to third base on, you may not be the perfect fit, but you might know the perfect fit for that person, even though I don't. So It's a collective team effort to engineer wins for these entrepreneurs. They're going to be some of the most successful people in our hometown. Why wouldn't we help them get off, get it going, get a little traction, because eventually they're going to be, driving our tax base. They're going to be donating to the Little League and creating great jobs for our, for our community. They're the perfect people to be wanting. I mean, it's always good to show love to a fellow human or a fellow Sacramentan, but these entrepreneurs, they're so driven, they're so ambitious, they're the most hardworking people you'll ever meet in your life. We got to help these people.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. I know, or at least my sense is, all the companies you've worked with are like your kids, right? They're all your favorite. You love them all equally. But as you look back on all the companies that have sort of started to cycle through, and you've had an ability to touch in one way or another, and you had to single one of them out as a success story that you're sort of most proud of, almost the most improved. They when they came in, they were sort of, there's all this raw potential, but then you were able to work with them, and you're just so proud of what they've been able to accomplish. Does one particularly come to mind?
The one that comes to mind, we've had a number of them that have grown and exited, right? It's always nice when a company grows and then they were able to sell it and have a payday, and then many times they'll put money back into the community, and it's a nice feeling to see, to sort of live vicariously through those people. So I was driving down the road yesterday going to Chico. There's an event in Chico for startups, and I was operating a panel. I was moderating a panel, and I get the phone call from a guy by the name of Jeff Rizzo. He built a company called Riznos. Did you ever know Jeff?
Oh yeah.
Okay, went to Oakmont High School
early on as well, and I know that story well.
What a great guy!
Yeah.
He comes in here in this office, and we hit it off. We end up going to a Niner game. He ends up saying, Mark, he's building a YouTube channel, right? So it's not really an investable company by most people's standards. And he's got this YouTube channel. He's doing it in his garage or his parents' garage. And so he says, Mark, I want a small investment, and if you're up for it. He's super humble, super brilliant guy. He had done investment banking in the past, and so he's smart financially, and he was good at YouTube algorithms. And he had this thing called Riznos where he reviewed products. And he's like, well, I want to bring in this other person to help me, and we need just a little bit of money so we can pay each other a salary, and we need to go rent a space outside my parents' house because now I'm going to have an employee. So I put in a little bit of money, very little, and end up renting him a space here at my location. And he and Matt ended up building this incredible company. They ended up pivoting, like all companies do, and became a mattress. They reviewed mattresses. That ended up becoming their big thing. And that's the one thing about entrepreneurs is the best ones are humble enough to understand that they don't have all the answers and they need to be searching for the right one. And Jeff and Matt, they were special. They'd be playing football, brainstorming out in the parking lot. Maybe I'd go out there and play catch with them once in a while. And, they're special. And he ended up building it into an extremely successful company. They had a nice exit. And he's gone on to, he ended up buying a house first while he still still had Riznos, and he's just a true success story. But it's the type of person he is. He's the never quit. You figure it out. You can't do it alone.
Yeah, that's a perfect transition to another question I had for you, which is, you've now, how many companies would you guess that you've touched in a meaningful way in one form or another, whether you've invested or just
me personally helped? It's an interesting question because my teammates do so much work, and so I think the group effort is 1,000 plus. We just at our conference, we have thousands of people show up at these conferences and stuff. So, but in terms of personally, I've owned or invested maybe 50 plus myself, maybe 60. And then the Growth Factory is now invested into 60, 65 companies. So that's just where we put money in. Yeah. But we run programs for high school students that are building companies and actually launching fundable companies through the high schools and the different colleges through Sierra College and Sac State and all the different areas that we're involved with. It's a lot. It's a lot of companies, and we have programs with the city of Roseville, the city of Rockland, El Dorado County. We're getting this Backyard Advantage is getting some of the government agencies involved and helping companies throughout the region, whether it be financial investment or training or other types of help in entrepreneurship. It's thousands, and there's nothing more gratifying than to get a call like that one I got from Jeff, just to shoot the breeze, and we talked about the election results, so that was kind of fun. They both went the way we wanted them.
The reason I asked that question is undoubtedly at this point you've started to form a view on what the most important criteria are to figuring out which entrepreneurs and which types of companies are worth backing. And curious to know what you've learned there, both on the positive side, it's like, when I see this, I'm all in. And when I see this, it starts to send up red flags. You want to share a little bit of what your learnings have been? Yeah,
I could talk a little bit about that because, the Growth Factory invests one way, and I've had the private, angel investor approach, and they're a little bit different. But my role on our team in investing at the Growth Factory is really assessing the founder and the founding team. I put a lot of weight in our decision-making process in terms of where we want to invest into the founding team. And typically a solo founder is one that we would be maybe a red flag. A plan to bring in the right team would be needed, and chemistry is huge. So I put a lot of weight in that. And what I look for predominantly is the commitment level and the demonstrated commitment level from the founder and the founding team. Have they sacrificed other things and have skin in the game? They're all in. The person that maybe has the part-time job on the side or hasn't put their own money into the game, those are ones that are maybe a little bit more, I don't know if they're a red flag, but they're less attractive to me. We want people that have committed and they're all in. People have left their job and they're going for it, and there's a believability to that. I think the other thing is the humility. There's people that you meet right off the bat and they know everything, and those people are an instant red flag. You begin to have a conversation and it's one way, their way, and it's like those kind of things demonstrate to me that they may have a harder time pivoting like Jeff did. If you can't stay open-minded to other people's ideas and listening to your customers, listening to what the market says, you're not going to recognize the signs that you need to pivot. Because I think every company I've ever invested into is pivoted, and we're constantly reinventing ourselves. Even later stage companies have to do that. And then I think the third thing is authenticity. I want to be around people that are, I guess, honest is the way to phrase it, but really where you have a conversation with somebody and you're getting the real them. They're not putting on some show for you. They're human. They're willing to admit that they don't have all the answers. They're willing to show the vulnerable side of their personality. And those are the type of people I like to be friends with. Those are the same type of people I want to invest into.
Yeah, no, it's good. Good mantra. It's funny listening to you. Are you familiar with there's a book called The Ideal Team Player? Patrick Lencioni. Have you seen that one?
I know Patrick's books, but I don't think I've ever read that one.
I'm pretty sure that it was him. But anyway,
Okay.
he describes the ideal team player, and it was interesting because I was listening to you describe, in a sense.
That's like the five dysfunctions of the team and all that. Yeah.
Yep. But listening to you describe, what I would characterize sort of the ideal entrepreneur, and his view is it's hungry, humble, and smart. And any two of those is problematic, but if you get all three, you got magic.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting listening to you talk about that. I'm going to have to think about that after we're done here and figure out if, in fact, there is some correlation to being a great team player and being a great entrepreneur.
Well, it's interesting because I've thought a lot about this, obviously having a podcast, having to go out and speak to groups and things like that, and leading my own teams. And I read a Patrick Lencioni book called The Dream Manager. I read it 20 years ago, and it was the concept is every organization needs to have somebody, and I think in more small and medium-sized companies, it's often the CEO. For me, in my old companies, and I think in my company today too, the person that really listens to what the team's dreams are. You might be the janitor of a company, or maybe have a lower level line job, or you might be a mid-management. But if somebody doesn't understand what your dreams are and how you can advance your dream within the organization, then that's a disservice, and it's a missed opportunity. Because I think if people can see how this company, this job, this opportunity can really advance me to where I really want to go in my life, even if it's a stepping stone type of opportunity, there's so much gratitude, and people the janitor will work his tail off for you if he can understand how that's a pathway to what he wants in life.
Yeah.
And so I think being able to help understand how you can help navigate that as a leader of a company, so that everybody wins. Help me, help you, and we all win.
So circling back to your earliest comments, which was at the end of the day, it's all about family, right? And family, it can be the narrowest of definition of family, or it can be the broadest of definition of family. But everything you've done is somehow, I think, tied back to family. I know that you, day to day, I know Stacy, your wife Stacy, is involved in the business. I know your kids are involved in the business. What are some of both the joys that offers and some of the challenges that it offers?
Yeah, we are all about family, and my wife is not directly involved in the growth factory. She does the Allegiant. She does Allegiant Vets, though, so she's on the board of Allegiant Vets. We started an organization called Allegiant Vets that helps veterans as they transition out of the military. My son is the CEO. He was in the military. He was a Marine, and so he's the CEO. And my wife and I are on the board, and we launched it. And she's active in helping keep that glued together. So that's huge. And I think in terms of being good, she's organized, right? So she's more detail-oriented than I am, for sure. And so she's one of those people that helps keep she's like glue, right, in that kind of way. So I would say there's no negative in that, only positive, and the positive would be the glue. In terms of challenges, currently, none are coming to mind. Over the years, and other people, you may be able to attest to this as an entrepreneur, it can be stressful being an entrepreneur, and it can it could sometimes you take your work home with you, and it can sometimes be a little bit challenging. And for us, she was really understanding about that. She was the HR director of the city of Roseville, so she had a really good job, which was kind of a godsend at times because, she had benefits and a good, a well-paying job. And as I was out trying to, figure it out. And so in many ways, the stresses of two working spouses, that's a stress. But at the end of the day, we're the type of people that want to do what's best for the family first. So we would listen to each other. And we actually made a decision at the beginning of our marriage that she would make all the little decisions and I would make all the big decisions. And 39 years later, it's been no big decision. So it ends up being so it's been no negative other than, somehow there's no big decision.
When that big decision comes up, though, I know you're going to be ready for it.
I'm waiting for my shot.
But, so I know a lot of the people, not only do you work with, young entrepreneurs, but you also interact with a lot of family businesses, whether it's directly or indirectly. And, a lot of them face that great challenge, especially someone who loves his family as much as I happen to know that you do, right? And you have that such a special bond with each of them as a father or as a spouse. And so I guess my question is it ever a challenge to try to make sure that doesn't somehow get affected or compromised by the fact that you're also, at least in some circumstances, technically their boss?
Oh, interesting, because I don't view it that way. I don't view it as I'm their boss at all.
Which may be part of the answer.
Yeah,
right?
so yeah,
which
that's
may be the whole
I'm
answer.
Not there. Yeah, so my daughter, I invested into her real estate company 2010, 2012, I can't remember. She sold it to Coldwell Banker, and then she started a new one, and I was a silent partner in the old business. Now her business is hers. It has nothing to do with me. She does manage my properties, though, so I happen to be a small-time real estate investor and got a bunch of Airbnbs, and I own this building. It's a co-working space. So she's invaluable as a, basically, I guess she works for me as a subcontractor, but I don't feel like her boss. I'm her boss. I feel like she's, she's my boss. Yeah, I'm her client, I suppose. Yeah. And then my son being, running this charitable organization, it's his vision, not mine. And so I feel like, he tries to manage the board to a certain extent, and I'm just a board member. But one of the things that we've done from a family standpoint is we're a close family, but we're a competitive family. So my two kids, I'd say less my wife, but my two kids and I have a competitive nature to us. And that can, getting us to all get along and agree is definitely a challenge. And we all live on the same property. You know about that, and I don't know if you were going to get to that or not, but when you're building something like a family compound, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat. And so getting us all to agree on what it should look like, because it's my vision, but I don't want to build it alone. I want everybody to love it because I want it to be around for 100 years. And Scott over here, who's also helps with the podcast and other things, he sort of is... I don't know if he's the referee, but he's somewhere in the mix in terms of helping us all get to good decisions on, how we're going to build something. And it's almost built. It's basically done. So we're at and we haven't killed each other yet.
All right, so talk about
we
Haneyville.
haven't killed each other yet.
If you're going down that far,
okay,
you got to tell the world about Haneyville and the vision and what it is and why it is and how.
Haneyville is 74 acres in the heart of Loomis. It's the most magical community in the world. Outside of Disneyland, and it's got my two children in their house, my house, and then it's got the town, which is like a family clubhouse with the entrance is like the Ville, and it's got a nice lit up sign when you walk in, and my 7 grandkids live out there as well. And so I look out my sliding glass door, I got this gigantic sliding glass door. It's only a 2-bedroom house, but gigantic sliding glass door, and it overlooks the entire thing, so I can see. In a typical day, I might see my daughter-in-law carrying around one kid and holding the hand of another. Maybe kids. It's got a batting cage. It's got volleyball court. It's got a big pond. It's got a memorial pathway with flagpoles, and it's the most incredible place in the world.
And so what started that? I mean, does that
well,
something,
that was an accident.
when did that happen?
That was my wife's.
You didn't have enough to do?
Somebody came up. You were probably at my old house.
Yep.
I had this really cool backyard that we had built for this backyard party, and somebody came up and they wanted to buy our house. They made us an insane offer on the house. We said yes, and my wife said yes on one condition: we go buy a property and we build a family compound. So anyway. They ended up backing out of the offer.
So even that wasn't a big enough decision for you to weigh in on.
No, that was her decision. So we ended up getting rid of that house. We buy this property, 74 acres. It's an old winery. It's dilapidated. It's a piece of crap. And so it's like, we built it sort of from the ground up. Marcus got to design his house. Ashley's designed her house. We designed our house. We designed the town is what we call it, because it was an old winery and it looked like a town. So that's why the name Haneyville. One of our teammates started calling it Haneyville one day because it looks like a town. So we rebuilt it to look like a town. And it really is out there. It's kind of weird and wild, but it's ours, and it's home to us.
You get to decide how weird you want to be.
Yeah, we're weird, but we love each other.
To everybody else.
Yeah. So it truly is magical, and when people see it, they're like, "What?" Because it's just getting done right now. We're just finishing. We moved in January. My son moved in. His was the first house to get done, and that was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago. And then my daughter's got done 2 or 3 years ago, and ours just got done in January. So we had been kind of going out there and watching everybody else have fun, camping out, bonfires out there for the last 5 or 7 years, or however long it's been going on. And now it's basically done. And so yeah, we're super excited. So my next backyard party, I'm gonna have a little bit bigger backyard.
Yeah, see what you're probably one of the few people I know who can probably fill up a 74-acre backyard. So, despite your very kind comments early on about some of the things that I've been involved with, I don't know anybody who has more stuff going on than you. And so, I mean, how do you have both the time and the energy to do all that you do professionally, personally, and then go build a new town?
Well, I think when we are passionate about something or super excited about something, the energy tends, the passion, the excitement, the inspired action tends to happen. So I feel like it all starts with having some dream. And so to me, I'm this manifestation guy, right? So the old backyard manifested into something I was super excited about. Now the new backyard, super excited about it. And so I dream about it. I think about it all the time. And so I think what we think about gets that in action. And I think for me, it's like I want to do something. I get excited about doing something that most people would say is impossible, right? So you're building a town. What? That's impossible. I'll show you. No, I'm not showing anybody. I'm showing myself because I think it's virtually impossible. But we did it. Same with the Backyard Advantage, the most connected community in the world for local entrepreneurs. Sounds kind of far-fetched out there. I'm going to try it. That type of thing. So I get excited about doing those things, doing things that are most people would think are impossible. And I don't do it alone. That's my little, I guess, secret is like all I have to do is get excited about it and get a few other people excited about it. And then we start moving in a direction. And for me, it's about, I don't do things that are like, I'm not that guy that says, I have to be here by the end of the year or there in 6 months. I'm more like, look, I got this big picture I'm painting. If it takes 7 years, takes 10 years, hey, no problem. I enjoy building.
Yeah, it's funny because that was one of the other things I wanted to talk to you about is it's my sense. Some people, they're 8 years old and they have their plan, right? It's okay. I'm going to go to this college. I'm going to study this thing, and then I'm going to go and get this job, and this is what my wedding's going to look like, and they're all the way through to the retirement home they're going to live in. It feels like they're just very orchestrated and planned. And my question to you is, when you started Any Biz, did you have a clear plan and vision? I know this answer. At least I feel in my heart I know this answer. Clear vision, or was it more, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to see what feels good about that, and then I'm going to figure out where to go from there, and then I'm going to do that little thing, and then I'm going to pivot, and I'm going to just keep building as long as it keeps being fun.
I just keep making mistakes and course correcting. So my brother and I had video stores together. We were planning on growing it to 100 video stores and going public. Well, we all know what happened to the video store industry. Accidentally got into security camera sales, built some companies, and we shouldn't have been in the security business, but we loaned somebody some money and he couldn't pay us back, and next thing you know, we got his company, and we're selling security cameras, and then sold our companies, and then my brother retired and started Haney Biz, and I don't know what I'm going to do. So I sold concrete. I own a concrete company, sold concrete for a while, and I just kept navigating myself toward things I enjoyed doing a little bit more. And I think starting the podcast led me to a whole world that I hadn't really discovered. So we had Haney Biz, it's kind of a parent company that managed some of these small companies that I owned. And then I started the podcast. And that really led me to understanding what venture capital was, meeting people like you, and meeting other people in Sacramento. And it really opened up my eyes to, I guess, the Sacramento business community. I had been so focused on my business that I hadn't thought about the greater community. And so from then, that's when the vision came of the 100 Millionaire Business in the Backyard, and then the Growth Factory and so on. But it wasn't until I started the podcast till that happened.
Got it. What, as you look back, what's the best advice? You're always in the position of having young entrepreneurs come and seek your wisdom. But curious to know what you feel is the best advice that you received along the way.
The first thing that comes to mind is my dad. My dad owned a TV shop, which later became the video stores. My brother and I bought his company and built it into some video stores. And my dad was kind of old school. And I remember when the California lottery came out, and my dad said, never buy a lottery ticket. And I'm like, oh man, Dad's getting serious here. Don't buy a lottery ticket. And so I thought about that. And over the years, I've come to understand that means I am the lottery ticket. I am the person I need to be betting on. So I think for all of us to realize that if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I think instead of thinking that somebody's going to come save us, or that we're going to get lucky, or there's a get rich quick scheme, it's probably not in the cards. You're better off betting on yourself, 10 times out of 10.
And there's no shortcut.
And there is no shortcut. And get yourself right. That's the shortcut. If you can't get out of your own way, then you're not going to be building anything.
Yeah. So as you've evolved within Haney Biz and the Growth Factory, you've sort of, at least and for some people, you've evolved from being an inspiring mentor to, an investor partner. How does that change the dynamic, if at all?
It's interesting because I'm learning, right? So I think it really requires a new skill set. So when I'm investing so I start a podcast, I'm inspiring people, I'm encouraging and cheerleading and maybe giving a little bit of coaching. And I'm still doing some of that stuff. And then you're investing your own money. And so that's, that's a great learning experience as you become an angel investor. But I think when you know this because you have a venture fund that's substantially bigger than ours, but when you take somebody else's money and what we do at the Growth Factory is we pool the money. I think there's a lot of similarities to the way that you do it at DCA, but we pool other people's money and then we go invest it into startups, and we want to provide a nice return for our investors so that they're happy with their investment, and maybe they'll come back and invest again, and so on. And that's pressure. There's something that is different about being responsible for other people's money, that you can't just go off the seat of your pants and that's a cool idea. And it needs to be vetted. And so I feel like our team is really good at that. And so I think one of the things I've always believed is, nobody builds a truly great company alone. And we put people. I was able to attract some really good people to help me. Rick Spencer. There's nobody I know that knows how to connect dots better than the co-founder of the Growth Factory, Rick Spencer. He sees things that most people cannot see, and is able to engineer wins like nobody I've ever seen in my life. And then Monique, who I mentioned as well, in terms of like bringing things together and being the glue, a lot like my wife is for the family. She's that for the Growth Factory, and I think she is that for, in large part, for the Sacramento startup community. She is glue for that group. And so I put people in my life that are really good at building so that I can kind of stay in my lane, and we can still be responsible with other people's money and this extra responsibility that I now feel like I have.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I can't think of how many times I've had to explain to someone, you know what? If this was just my money, I would invest in you, but it's not, right? Yeah. And so it's a whole nother level of responsibility, a whole nother level of scrutiny.
And you're a guy that knows how to build a team. I mean, look at the people that you've built, the team that you built at DCA. You guys have grown tremendously over the years, multiple funds, but also expanded it out beyond just, investing. And you help a lot of people, and it's impressive. And you find time to launch very large entities outside of that as well. So how do you do it?
Nice try. Nice try. Nice try. See, I knew your instincts would kick back in, and you try to turn the tables back. But I'm not going to let you. I'm not going to let you do it.
Talking about myself, and I'm sitting here talking to Curt freaking Rocca.
So you've done a lot, right? Personally, professionally, along the way. But what are you most proud of?
I think personally, I'm super proud of the unity that we have in our family. I joke that I'm surprised we haven't killed each other yet. But I love that my kids are competitive. I love that. I love that we want to win. So I'm super proud of that, and I see that that's happening with the grandkids, and I'm proud that it's a foundation for when I die. Maybe the culture is created so that it can continue for multiple generations. Because the first part of my mission statement is, with future generations in mind, I will help build opportunity for my family, friends, and community. But it's all around for the long term. So I think we hit a point in time in our life where it's like, okay, I want to do something that lasts. I think the Growth Factory will last, right? The Backyard Advantage it's really a culture. It's a culture of helping each other. And I think even though we're at the beginning stages, the traction of the Backyard Advantage and showing love to your fellow Sacramento entrepreneur, that's something that can last for years and years. As people start repeating the Markisms and the mantras surrounded in the Growth Factory, that's something I'm super proud of, that it's getting traction. So when I think about the things that I'm building, they're really short term, they're still a work in progress, but long term, I'm proud that I decided to tackle something that is almost impossible, yet it feels like it's going to come true.
Yeah. Following up on that, right, and notwithstanding some of the comments you made along the way, reality is you're a big personality. You're a big driving force behind all this. I mean, a big reason why a lot of those things happened. Yes, Rick and Monique, couldn't agree more. Incredibly talented. The other people on your team I've met, similarly talented. But part of that also is you have a talent for being able to draw talented people in and inspire them and make them successful. So my question at the end of the day is, how does someone like you think about succession? And how do you ensure that the organization can fulfill the vision that you have, which that it is sustainable for future generations?
Yeah. For the Growth Factory, it was so when it was Haney Biz, right, making the investment. It wasn't Haney Biz, it was me.
It was Haney.
Yeah, it was Haney making the investments. It wasn't actually coming out of the organization Haney Biz, but under the Haney Biz brand, I was making personal investments. And I think the launch of the Growth Factory was really a part of that. So Monique has a piece of the action, Rick has a piece of the action, and I feel like that's been helpful for thinking about succession. I think it's important to have people, whether you give up part of your company or not, for people to feel a part of something long term. I definitely see it in family businesses. If the kids feel like they're just working for their dad, that's one feeling. If they feel like they're a part of the family business, it's a completely different thing. So people need to feel like owners, or they actually need to be owners, or have an upside to the longevity of the company, because not only will they work harder, but they'll stay with it when you're, as you tend to tire. And the other thing too is my personality has never been to micromanage. In fact, I don't really even think that way. I think about like, what lane do I fit in best? My lane with our organization is, making a little bit of noise, right? Talking up our game a little bit. And they're really good at execution, and they're good at talking up the game as well. So they're really, from an operational standpoint, very, very strong. And so I think staying out of the way is sometimes helpful. And when you do that, they feel more ownership, pride of ownership. Rick runs the fund, Monique runs the rest. Well,
but it's sometime, right? If someday, God forbid, right, the guy who's in charge, leading the charge, making all the noise, all of a sudden, if there's less noise, people start looking around and go, oh, it's not as noisy as it used to be. And does that worry you, and can you plan for that? And I asked the question, and I hope you don't mind the question, but I asked the question not so much as it relates to you, but there's a lot of people who are running a lot of businesses who face that exact same challenge, right? They founded it, they're the energy behind it, they're the vision behind it, they're the patriarch, if you will, and they're trying to figure out, hey, how do I fill whatever, when I leave, there's going to be some void. You've defined sort of your own void, which is being the noisemaker, or the lighthouse in a sense. Other people will have different voids that they're going to leave, but all of them are facing the challenge of saying, how do I make sure that whatever the void is that I'm going to leave somehow gets filled? And I was just curious if you've thought about that.
I've thought about that a lot. And I have a belief that the most important, I don't know if important is the right word, the biggest obsession that a CEO should have is, how compelling is my vision? So if your vision is not compelling, then nobody's going to follow you. They don't know where you're going, they're not going to follow. And so I think if the vision is not compelling, nobody's going to follow. And I think one of the ways that you can tell, besides people following, if your vision is working and it's compelling, is when other people start sharing your vision, and it becomes a collective vision, and it's the vision of the organization. And I think that's the sign of a strong leader or a strong CEO, is that everybody on the team can talk about the vision in a way that inspires action in others. And when that begins to happen, then you know that you're on the right track. And that's happening within the Growth Factory. And the Backyard Advantage, there are people well outside the Growth Factory that are talking about the Backyard Advantage and what it's doing to reshape the Sacramento entrepreneurial scene. And it's because of the language associated with the vision. Not only do you need the vision, but you need people to be able to, finish your sentences. And a lot of that has to do with, it sounds like a branding exercise, but it really, it's a commitment from the team to start with to utilize the same messaging in how we're going to get our point of view across. And so the Backyard Advantage and some of the other mantras, that's huge. And so if I'm just coaching somebody on that, is, if nobody's getting in the car with you then, it's not a good thing. And the other thing that I've seen happen is people that they settle. And that's something I've I've seen over time is you start something and you're running on low resources at the beginning, and so you're willing to kind of take anybody with a heartbeat to get on the team with you and get in the car with you, and you're cruising the mall with a bunch of bozos. Next thing you know, you're attracting other bozos to get in the car with you, and and if it's a company, you've got a bozo explosion, and the next thing you know, you don't have a very good company. It's not very attractive, and these people sharing the message is not super helpful. But when you attract really strong people at the beginning because of where you want to take it and get it reshaped so that they're feeling ownership, now you've got something super special. And so I think we have that with the Growth Factory and the Backyard Advantage. But and again, when it was Mark's backyard, it had one level of the vision had one level of excitement, but when it became the collective backyard of the Sacramento region, now it's got more people wanting to jump in the car with us. And the leaders of Sacramento are saying, Mark, how do we help? They want to help. You've helped me tremendously. Lokesh with Moneta has helped. GSAC, Barry Broom has helped. Five Star Bank has helped. Other banks have helped. I mean, we have people saying, how do I help every day? And so now it's like, okay, how do we put everybody to work?
We've talked a little bit about all that you've done, but we've only touched the surface. At the same time, none of us execute flawlessly, even those like you who execute well. And I'm curious to know, as you look back, and I've got my own list, which is very, very long, but if you could have a do-over, if you could have a mulligan on something that you did along the way that you wish you had an opportunity to do over again, what would it be, and what would you have changed?
Interesting question. Nothing comes to mind in terms of a do-over, but I can think of a lot of mistakes that I've made that have been great learning. I think one of my companies, we had built a chain of video stores, had 100 and something employees, and we had loaned a guy some money and fell into this security camera company, and we had built it from like a couple million in sales to 35 million in sales, and I'm trying to juggle everything, and I found myself managing from the press box. Right, I'm kind of juggling the video stores with management of the video stores. Got the sales team over there in the video company and the security company, and I'm up in my office, handling stuff. And I didn't spend enough time in the trenches. And I think the truth is in the trenches. And I think that's one of the things that I think
you have a new. By the way, I hate to interrupt, but you have a new. That's got to be a new Markism, right?
Yeah,
the truth
it's
isn't.
not new,
I see that on a billboard somewhere. The truth is in the trenches.
It is. If you don't get in and roll up your sleeves and get involved with your employees and your customers and your investors potentially, then you don't really know what's going on. You don't really. How are you going to help the company pivot when tough times come? And because they're coming, they come to every company. And if you've been in the press boxes listening to the filtered reports of your VP, that you're not as you can have a mass walkout. And I had in my security company, I had a group of people walk out and go to the competition, and I blamed myself for not being in the trenches. I wasn't understanding and reacting to the needs that they had in the trenches. And so after that, I got out of my office. I moved my desk down right in the middle of the sales floor at the time, because in that business it was all about sales, right? There's no problem more sales don't fix. And we grew our company from 30 million to over 200 million in 5 companies. But I think a big part of that was real-time decision making from the trenches and having the leader really accessible versus taking all this filtered information and helping drive decisions. So I definitely think that CEOs, when they're fearful, it's easy to go up and hide in your office or hide in the press box. And the courage is actually when you get out in the trenches and communicate with your employees, share the vision, listening to what their needs are, what they want to do, and really make yourself vulnerable in a way, because they know more about what's going on than you do if you're new to it. And the way we are, I kind of got thrown into it. I'm a video store guy, and all of a sudden I'm selling security cameras. I was not the expert on that, and I had to go, I guess, roll up my sleeves and get involved and figure it out. And it ended up working at some point.
But it gets back to what you said earlier, which is invest in the people, not the business, right? Yeah. I mean, hell, you didn't know anything about that business. It was a blocking and tackling business. You figured it out because you knew you needed to figure it out, right? And you could have been the world's greatest expert in security cameras. Without that same passion and commitment, you would have failed.
Yeah,
probably.
For sure.
So,
and on that front, so when we first bought we loaned a guy money, couldn't pay us back, and so we got this company out of the bankruptcy, and everybody almost went bankrupt. And we sold our way out of it. And the way we did it is we ended up recruiting salespeople, right? So let's go recruit all the best salespeople that I went to high school with and things like that. And I had to have a vision. I had to portray the vision of, look, picture, remember the movie Young Guns, right? It's a Western where these guys are all buddies, and, it's the Wild West. And we were the young guns of the security industry because we were all new to it, and we focused on cameras, and it was but we had this cool vision. And I guess every time I've done it, I've sort of been able to paint this picture to attract people to help me to figure it out. And so I hired my friends to help me figure it out. So
I've said many times, there's almost nothing more powerful than not knowing you're not supposed to be successful.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, think about it. It's like, oh shit, I didn't know I was supposed to fail. I didn't know this was supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
I just went out and did it. So with all that, what's next in the vision?
I need to develop that, I think, because I get up every morning at 3:15. I have this thing I call 3:15, the moment of truth. I get up really early. I go to yoga, and then I go to CrossFit, and then I go to yoga I leave at 5:17 every morning. And my first little hour is drinking a cup of coffee and kind of doing my little meditation thing and thinking about what my life means to me and what's important to me. And I'm struggling with that a little bit right now because I want to be the fittest guy in town by the time I'm 85, and so I got 24 years to get there. So that's a big thing to me, and I'm falling behind lately. I went on a 2-week road trip and I didn't exercise much, but so fitness is a really important thing to me. With the Growth Factory, with my family, it's built out. Now we just need to build out Haneyville and start getting some use out of that. But my kids are both entrepreneurial, and I just want to start seeing that come together for my kids and grandkids. So that's on track. But I think the Growth Factory has there's a vision of taking it to other towns, taking the backyard advantage to other communities. So the vision is not totally dialed there. So we're going to be doing our strategic planning later this year to talk about what's next for the Growth Factory and hopefully create a vision that the team is super excited about. But I don't think it's clear yet other than to continue to grow Sacramento. But I think I do need something to get up in the morning for and drive for, because some of the things that I've started, the starting part's done. Now I've got to figure out how to scale them or do something different. And I think scaling what we've got is probably what makes the most sense at this stage.
Yeah, I think you've probably got enough on your plate.
Yeah.
Final question.
Yeah.
What would you like your legacy to be?
Good question. I think if I'm speaking to the entrepreneurial community, I hope that people think I was a friend to the entrepreneur, to any entrepreneur, the solopreneur, the family business person, the guy that is trying to do venture capital. I really believe in what small business people do for America. I just see that as being, it takes a lot of risk to go out there and start your own business, and a lot of them fail. It takes a lot of sacrifice, but the ones that make it, they really are the heroes. They're the ones that, donate back to, the little leagues, and they join the Rotary, and they're just like they're super good for any hometown. And so I hope that I am known or remembered, if you will, as somebody who was good for the Sacramento small business person, Sacramento entrepreneur. That matters to me, but I think what matters to me more is just that my kids and grandkids thought that I set a good foundation for them to create opportunity from. So really, I want to be that person that they're appreciative, because maybe I've laid out, whether it be in some of my philosophies or some of the other things that I've started, maybe a platform that creates opportunity for them and other people.
Hell, you built them a town, for God's sakes.
Yeah, what else?
Who does that?
Yeah. So we got a town, and I think it's and the whole idea though is it's not just our town; it's our family's town. But like, how do we help the community too? My family's. We talked about the veterans, but my daughter within real estate, she helps the other She's the president of the Placer County Association of Realtors. She's on the board at the California Association of Realtors. She's really into helping other real estate professionals. So our family's really built with that culture. My wife, she is the most giving person I know, and it's like, we want to be that family that, is gives more than they take from society.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for being willing to talk with me and give me the control mic for a change.
I am honored that you would want to, get me to share. I mean, you've had so much. You're so good at this. I've heard you do this in the past at your events, and you share stories in a way that is remarkable. So thanks for doing this and bringing out some of the things that I don't talk about all the time. So
well, I think that's the beauty in it is I think there are a lot of people who, as I said, they know, Mark Haney, the podcast guy, but they don't necessarily, have an opportunity to peel the onion back a layer, even a layer deep, much less 2 or 3 layers, and understand, the why behind, what you do and who you are and what helped get you here. So it's always, I think, better to understand just anything when you have context. Yeah. And so hopefully the conversation will help give folks a little more context on Mark Haney the person, and Haney Biz, and the Growth Factory, and everything else that you do that makes such a difference. So thanks for the time, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching today's show. My goal for every episode is that you find a takeaway, something tangible you can use in your business today. And if you have a comment about a favorite takeaway, feel free to put it in the box below. And if you have a topic that you'd like me to bring up on the show, don't forget to let me know. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about entrepreneurship. Because at Haney Biz, we are always by your side.